How's it going, guys? It's Pride here, back with part 13 of What If the Earthlings Were Strong. Last time we left off with Piccolo having achieved his desire to help out the Namekians in a beneficial way, letting them get the resources and the skills that they need in order to survive any uncommon threats in the future. Piccolo feeling a little homesick and doing his best to train up the Namekians there and having their own elites. It was time for him to go. There are some parting gifts for him, and he even leaves a lasting gift of his own. But at the same time, during this celebration, there are people in the shadows overlooking with insidious thoughts and ill intent, especially towards Piccolo, and their presence are about to be made known. So let's see what today really has in stores for the Namekian race as a whole. Piccolo has just used Spirit Vision on himself in order to have Nell be a part of New Namek once again. Piccolo does immediately feel a lot weaker, and he knows that a lot of his prowess has diminished, but his spirit soars as there's a new balance immediately within him. Now that he is a full Dragon Clansman again, his dormant abilities have been completely unlocked, and with that comes new senses. Piccolo's able to pick up on things a lot clearer now and on a far wider reach than ever before. And while everyone is ecstatic to have Nell back and celebrating the gift that the Grand Elder has given Piccolo of unlocking his potential, Piccolo's having a very serious look on his face as he senses something malicious in the area. And this is when the Grand Elder speaks up and says, "Well, I actually have one more surprise for you, Piccolo." And Piccolo stops him there and says, "We're going to have to hold it off right now. There are some uninvited guests in the area." And that is when a dark portal opens up not too far away from the rest of the villagers, and two figures step out of it. Everyone is immediately on guard, but then their guards lower as they realize that the figures look a lot like them, and they even recognize one of them being Tanta, and the other one looks like a Namekian, but slightly different, a little more cruel, and for Piccolo radiates a sinister energy. The unknown Namekian says, "So, you knew that we were here. Very interesting. Hello, fellow brothers, long lost family members. My name is Gamelin. I don't mean to ruin the celebrations, but time is of the essence, and I'd rather you not sit in ignorance anymore." The Grand Elder steps forward and wonders what is going on and who is this person that Tanta has brought into their village, an unknown Namekian who doesn't seem quite right. Tanta explains that this person's name is Gamelin, and he is here to help all the Namekian people reunify them across all the universes, because the time is nigh for revenge. Grand Elder and the rest of the villagers obviously don't know what's going on. Revenge? That doesn't make any sense. Against who? Moro's gone, and Piccolo has just taught them ways to protect themselves from any other invaders. So who would they be getting revenge on? Some of them think that Frieza might be an option, but the majority of them don't feel like waging a war. With the Grand Elder speaking up for the rest of them and said, "We don't seek out revenge. It is not to end the Namekian way. We never forget, but we do not hold grudges. We try to seek out a peaceful life." This is where Gamelin steps back into the conversation and he says, "Well, I'm sorry to tell you. Maybe that is how you guys were taught after your last Grand Elder Guru raised you to be so passive. But that is not the Namekian way. Grand Elder Guru has instilled those lessons into you because he wants you weak. He doesn't want to risk anything and wants to be a bystander, thinking that there's no way to fight back against his enemies. Do you know the catalysm that led to only his survival, and as Gamelin looks at Piccolo, his too, about how we were brought to the brink as a race and most of us fled to different universes? I'll tell you what was the true cause of it. It was the gods, the very beings that say they will protect your universe, nearly brought us to extinction. There were more survivors on that fateful day than just Guru and this so-called Piccolo. Another member of our clan survived. His name was Narak, and he never forgot. While Grand Elder Guru wants you to forget and not amass too much power, he kept you weak. But our real enemies are the gods. Have you ever wondered why we're split into different universes? Just think that's a natural occurrence. You ever wondered what happened to the creator of the Super Dragon Balls? The very being that gave us Namekians all life to begin with. The gods happened. They chained him up just to keep the Dragon Balls around. He's too powerful to kill, but not impossible to imprison. And when one of our clan members decided to free him, it was an all-out war between us and the lesser deities. Did you truly think our race was so weak that someone of the likes of Frieza could just easily dispose of us? No, we became that. His Guru didn't want you to be strong enough to rebel again. He was afraid of being completely wiped out. Reasonable, but pathetic all the same. And while Gamelin is telling this story, Piccolo is being a silent listener. But that's not all he's doing. He's looking amongst the crowd to see the crowd's reaction, and also picking up their energies and mood based off of that. As he's getting a pretty decent reading on the crowd, a plan starts forming in his head. He can already tell that this might go south. Gamelin goes back to the original point of him being here as a unification front to finally get the Namekians to all band together, for it is finally close enough to time for them to fight back and free the dragon god Zalama for the betterment of the people and to finally have everlasting peace. One of the Namekians from the warrior clan speaks up and asks, where were you to begin with then? If you wanted the betterment of all of us, then where were you when we were being attacked by Moro? Where were you when we were being attacked by Frieza? Lives were lost, and yet you're here now, well after the fact. Doesn't seem like you cared about our survival before. Tenta speaks up and says, Sam, we couldn't help out because of a couple of reasons. First, we have no idea who could be trusted. Some people don't want to fight. Some people want only peaceful lives. Another reason is because it wasn't the right time. If we were to show our hands before the time was right, they would have descended upon us and got rid of the entire faction, maybe even the entire race. I know time doesn't seem perfect at the time, but I promise you, we wanted to help out more than you'll ever know. Some of the villagers are not bought by this, but other villagers can see some sense. Truly starting to become a divide. And more so, what Gamelin and Tenta are saying speaks to the hatred that is in some of their hearts for being stepped upon for so many years by people that just invade them for the Dragon Balls or just for no reason, it seems like. But before a true divide can happen amongst the people, Piccolo speaks up for the first time and says, I'm assuming that's not all. There has to be some catch for you deciding to pick now of all times. That's when Gamelin says, well, truthfully, we don't really demand much, at least at the moment. There is one thing that does have to happen before I leave here. You have to die. Everyone in the village is shocked, especially Grand Editor Muri. Says, what? Piccolo has helped us the most. Piccolo has done nothing but right by us. He trained us. He fought for us. How can we repay him like that? How can you even suggest such a thing? Especially since he is a Namekian like us. Gamelin says, wrong. I know you all can't sense it. You have no idea the facade that he puts on. But he has the divine energy himself. He was once a deity himself and retained some of that power. And in fact, it seems to have grown even more so recently. He cannot be left alive. He will side with the gods every step of the way. In fact, we have done our research on him as we've been watching from the sidelines, of course. It seems that Piccolo here is buddy-buddy with a lot of gods. So not only is he one, it's clear that his allegiance is to them, the traitor of our race, and so he has to die. Grand Editor says, I believe it's time for you to go. We will not have this here. Piccolo shall not perish today. And I believe I speak for all of us when I say Piccolo is our most honorable Namekian. He's the savior. Gamelin looks at everybody and can clearly see that each of them have made the choice in order to back Piccolo, and all of them see Piccolo as the savior. Gamelin looks at Tenta and says, it seems like they made their choice. Well, it's a shame that I have to kill more Namekians today. That's when Gamelin unleashes a wave of energy, making everyone embrace themselves, while Piccolo yells out, get ready, as another and wider portal opens up, and Gamelin seems to have summoned a lot of minions. But these minions don't look like Namekians per se. They share a little bit of the same green skin, but more draconic looking in nature, as a lot of these minions are excessively buff and they look ferocious. And there are some of the minions that even look like dark vassals that Demon King Piccolo used to summon and create back in the day. Gamelin tells his minions to charge, while Piccolo does the same, telling them to defend themselves and push back this enemy and push them off this planet. True fight has begun. Mima rushes forth and tries to engage with Gamelin himself, but Tenta gets in his way as a gravity field descends on the two, slowing Mima's advance. As Mima yells out, how could you side with him? A maniacal laughter comes from Tenta. Fool, we'll be on the right side of history. As Tenta's body changes severely and his power skyrocket. Tenta now, instead of a staff in one hand, the staff turns into a giant glove that wraps around his entire arm. It seems to give Tenta a massive boost in power. I had to pretend to be so weak against you. Now we get to have a true sparring session. Hope you can keep up. For Piccolo sees that Mima is no longer able to get to Gamelin. He can also see that Tenta was definitely holding back a lot of power. Sadly, he cannot help out as Gamelin does have to be dealt with. And he immediately goes to Kaioken times 25. This isn't him using Kaioken at his full power, as he did recently get it to Kaioken times 100, but no longer being fused with Nail, his progress did basically get reset back down to 50. So he's not using his full power off the bat, but he's trying to test the waters as it stands right now. On Nail's end, Nail is leading the entire group of warriors against onslaught of dark vessels and abomination that are attacking them. And Cargo is in charge of the support squad, supporting everybody, and is actually going to support Mima personally, as it seems that Mima is in quite a predicament with Tanta. Even with Mima using Kaioken to the maximum, Tanta is having no difficulties dealing with Mima at all. So Cargo is going to give him a boost in energy, as they're both going to team up against Tanta and hopefully even the playing field. Chaos is everywhere, but the Namekians seem to be holding strong against these Dark Namekians that are attacking them. Even Piccolo is doing pretty well against Gamlen, though Gamlen doesn't seem to be using his full power either. But this doesn't last long, as Gamlen says, "I think it's time to tilt the scales just a little bit. After all, I sensed it earlier. There's rage in a lot of you Namekians' heart. Let's bring it forth." As he brings up his hand and dark energy swirls around and he pointing his hand towards the crowd of Namekians. Piccolo gets in the way to try to block the attack, but a post comes out and it goes right through Piccolo, but it's a nauseating feeling. Then it hits the army below. The dark vassals and the abomination are slightly empowered by this aura that just washed over them. But that's only the beginning of their problems, as some of the regular Namekians that were fighting scream out in pain, holding their head, and a quarter of them start fighting against their own people. For some reason, they seem to be enraged and have gone insane out of nowhere. As Gamlen says, "Let the rage through hell within come forth, join me." Gamlen seems to have some type of ability that can corrupt people based on evil or rage in their heart. These Namekians that have been affected have turned colors and are now resembling Gamlen and Tanta to some degree, as they are being slowly turned into Dark Namekian. Piccolo says, "I'm in this right now." Puts 2 fingers to his head, instant transmissions, and then immediately after that, a special beam cannon comes from a completely different direction, aimed towards Gamlen's back. Gamlen barely moves out the way, but he does suffer a severe injury as his arm is lost. Regardless of this, he just chuckles as he says, "Good. If killing the god was any easier, I'll be disappointed, even if you are half-baked." Piccolo sneers and uses Kaioken to his maximum as he goes Kaioken times 50. It then splits into 4 different other clones. While Gamlen's still all laughing, it's like, "Oh, the clone ability. You wonder why Tanta was so good at it. I taught him myself." As Gamlen also splits into clones. There's now 7 Gamlens, 6 of them are clones, while he looks oddly ethereal after splitting himself up like this. Piccolo noticing that, taking that as a sign of a weakness, have all his clones instant transmission back and forth, creating dozens of after images while engaging Gamlen's clones. Piccolo's goal is to have them all distracted so he can get a real good shot at Gamlen himself, who was just standing there with a smug look on his face. Piccolo sees an opening, fires, but Gamlen doesn't even dodge as it hits him directly. It does no damage. Even with the special beam cannon, it should be able to pierce almost anything. Gamlen is completely unaffected. He laughs and says that his clone technique is far superior to anything that the Yardrax might have invented. He proceeds to further prove this point as his clones beats and destroys Piccolo's clones one by one, leaving Piccolo alone facing 6 other Gamlen that have now surrounded him. Mima and Cargo are still having a very hard time, as Cargo is now trying to help out the rest of the army. Even some of the support group also have turned into Dark Namekians. So Cargo is now split between helping Mima and the rest of their forces. While Mima is getting pushed to the edge, even with all the help that he is receiving, it still seems he's weaker than Tanta. It's at that moment that Tanta hits Mima in the gut with his giant gauntlet fist and sends Mima flying, colliding into a far off mountain. The Dark Namekians are slowly but surely pushing the Namekians back, weakening them bit by bit. It is truly a disastrous time on all fronts, as the Dark Namekians is getting closer and closer to a sure victory. Even for Nell, he's fighting multiple Dark Vassals and even some of the Warrior and Dragon clans members that have turned rogue, fighting multiple people at the same time, slowly being overtaken. Even when he deploys his clones, he hasn't been around long enough to get back into the groove of things or to truly train himself. So he's fighting with just the raw power that he has and the knowledge that he had while within Piccolo, which is truly the only saving grace that he has going on for him at the moment, and is allowing him to survive this long. Back over with Piccolo, seems to have a worried look on his face, as this seems like this is the worst case scenario for all of them. But inwardly, Piccolo thinks to himself, "Alright, it seems like they're fully committed now. Time to go to the next step." As the worried look on Piccolo's face disappears and he gives a smug grin to all the Gamlens surrounding him, powers up and unleashes his potential for the first time in the fight, as he gives a mental command to the rest of the Namekians, telling them to proceed to the next stage of the plan, that they can now utilize their trump card. And that is where we ended, as Piccolo seemed to have had a plan all along. And we can hope in the next part that it is good enough to be able to fend off these Dark Namekians and give the Namekians on New Namek true peace once again. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like and comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.